John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. All right, hang on. That was my alarm telling me to get the video started. So here we are. Okay, here we are on the 20th of July, July 20th, in the year of our Lord 2026. And I've got some great information for you tonight. So let me go ahead and click over here to Murtech on Rumble. This is my Rumble channel. And this is the video we're watching tonight. It says upcoming, but as you know, you are actually watching it. So let's go ahead and get into this. Alrighty. Looks like Debbie BS and Viper Senior has joined us in the chat. Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and close that out. I'll be back with you momentarily. And click the Show More button to expand out the description box. We have information from Dan Bongino, AP for Liberty, Robert Gouveia, and Wendy Bell Radio. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs to give. Looks like Glow, GP Wilco01, has given me a comment already. Hello, Murtech, Rumble number 3. Thank you very much. Okay, and we also have some shout outs to give. Marathon 40 just started following my channel. Looks like Audit the Department of Education. Sounds good. Just started following my channel. And Skong 181 just started following my channel. Copper Cup just started following my channel. Cleanse just started following my channel. Just in Wise 83 just started following my channel. Quentin Murphy 12 just started following my channel. FD Say just started following my channel. All right. Thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. Let me highlight this. I very appreciate that very much. I hope you're tuned in and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, let's slide down here. Debbie BS reposted my extra 765C. Glow commented on my daily news wrap up. And Glow also commented on my episode 1894. You just saw that. Or 1984. You just saw that. Debbie BS, Viper Senior, commented on my episode 1983. Debbie BS commented on my extra 753C. That took us back a few days, a couple of weeks. Debbie BS also commented on my extra 765C and 766A. Justin Wise 83 and Cottonball 31 commented on my extra 766B, and Debbie BS commented on my extra 766C. So thank you very much, folks, for reposting my video and giving me your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give that a thumbs up, and it looks like Viper Senior says, good evening, fellow patriots. Where we go one, we go all. Rumble number 4 tonight. Thank you very much, Viper Senior. All right. Well, let's jump back up here and see what Dan Bongino has to say in This Is Not Organic, episode 2556. Okay, let's see what that's all about.
I can't talk about and will not. It'd be disingenuous. I didn't go into the government to make money off of like, hey, tune in tomorrow. I'm going to let you in on secrets. No, leave that for like the D-bag crowd. That ain't me, okay? However, President Trump's speech opened the door, and of course the media is ignoring it, on 2 huge things. He mentioned first that China and other entities are out there stealing massive troves of information. He mentioned the voter database. That's one component of it, yes. And that they're using this information to manipulate the American public to believe things that aren't true. Point 1, huge takeaway info ops. Point 2, our elections are not as secure as they should be. Not everywhere in the country. Florida does a very good job. A lot of red states do a very good job. However, we have 50 separate laboratories of democracy. Some are not choosing democracy. They're choosing cheating, like California, where the system's easy to cheat in. Ballot harvesting, mail-in ballots, it's all BS. So those are the 2 takeaways. Be careful about our elections and watch out for information ops. I went into, if you missed Friday's show, please check it out. I went into detail about things I can talk about now finally and how things are still ongoing. But the information op, I want you to see the biggest information op going on right now that so many people are getting sucked into. It's just incredible you don't see it. I warned about this. The biggest information op going on right now is this war on democracy in general and civilization. Dan, that doesn't help. That's like a big statement. That's like saying the sky's blue. No, I'm not kidding. How many times have I posted on X and True Social? How many times have I put this out there? In a war, and with if you can pick a side between civilization and the savages, pick civilization. It's not by accident. There is an information war going on right now to destroy any representative democracy anywhere on earth. The United States, Israel, any company that does not subscribe to an Islamo-fanatic totalitarianism, they are using the proxy argument of Israel and the Jews because they know it ignites people's passions. But it's not about, Justin, did I not tell you this morning before the show? We had like this 20-minute conversation. He knows it. I promise you, this is not about the Jews or Israel. You think it is. Dan, why are you so passionate about this? Because their line, the Islamo-fanatics, trying to indoctrinate through information ops people into fighting their own liberty and freedom and fighting against civilization. Their line is first we get the Saturday people, then we get the Sunday people. They don't care if you're Jewish. Here's what they care about. You are not an Islamo-Nazi. You're an infidel. Listen to me, folks. I'm telling you, we hate the Jews. They hate everybody. Yes, they reserve special ire for the Jews, but they hate you too. That's the point. They're trying to sucker you into this. I'm going to prove it to you right now. First we get the Saturday people, then we get the Sunday people. It's you too. They will cut your head off too. I've been warning you about this for 10 years. Why are you so passionate about this? Because I like my head attached to my body. It works better there. Correct? Decapitation, I don't want my head cut off. I just don't. You shouldn't want yours either. It doesn't work well separated from the rest of your lumbar and thoracic spine. It just doesn't. It just doesn't work that way. It's not like starfish, like we can regrow one of the things. That doesn't work that way. Remember this goal out last week? Here's the op right here. The Islamo-Nazis and anti-American commies, they are, as David Horowitz calls them, an unholy alliance. Communists, socialists, Nazis, and Islamo-fanatics are all in the same tent together. Why? Why, Justin? Who is their common enemy? Their common enemy is you. Anyone who is not an Islamo-Nazi and anyone who believes that totalitarianism is the enemy. The Islamo-fanatic ideology revolves around totalitarianism. You will submit. If you believe in a representative democracy, I will not submit. I have a choice too. You're the enemy. They don't care if you're a Jew. Here, put up the ICC article and I'll show you what I mean. The International Criminal Court is the biggest freaking scam in human history. It's a scam. Leave this up, please, a second. Don't take it down. I put up this piece last week. The left, the socialists, progressives, Islamo-Nazis, all of these people out there, the Mamdamis, they're all in the same tent. They want you in jail. They can't do it in the United States. They can try, and they've tried before, but the systems still hold a bit. If they get the International Criminal Court, they're going to be locking up everyone who doesn't subscribe to it. Look, Rubio takes on the International Criminal Court. Why do you think Marco Rubio, who's very careful with his time and the president's time, has made a priority about this? Listen to this line. Folks, if you missed this on Friday, write this down. Screenshot it. The International Criminal Court's allies signaled that they intend to target President Trump once his term ends. Justin, is President Trump Jewish? He is, Andy, you sure? He's not. Okay, that's interesting to know because they're targeting President Trump, the International Criminal Court, which the left loves because it's a tyranny court, it's a star chamber. As the reaction to Mr. Rubio confirms, the European Union, that has a lot of socialists and commies too, won't say as much aloud, but called U.S. attacks on the court and threats on the court, quote, simply not acceptable. So all the globalists and the Islamo-Nazis and the progressives and the fascists and the leftist lunatics and the Democratic Socialists and the Bernie Sanders people, they all love the International Criminal Court, but they hate our court system here. They'll attack the Supreme Court in a heartbeat if the ruling doesn't go there. Weird, huh? They love the ICC because the ICC the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and their enemy is freedom. The unholy alliance between civilization and anywhere it exists. They cannot conquer human beings when human beings get a vote. They can't do it. This is the most important intro I've ever done. Please listen to me. I get this all the time. Why are you always talking about Israel and the Jews? Because it's not about that. My gosh, how many freaking terrorists and mutts and PDBs I've read. They say this. They openly talk about. They don't care if you're a Jew or a Christian or a Protestant. All they care about is you are not them. They mention the Jews because they think it's easy clickbait and can get stupid people to go along with their plan. So, the International Criminal Court, which the leftist unholy alliance loves because it can bypass any democratic institutions we have here, any of them. It's weird that Mamdani, who's a communist himself, they were just talking about in the ICC, Rubio's taking on the ICC because of Trump. They also want Netanyahu. Oh, now you mentioned Netanyahu. You put him in jail, get him in. They don't care about him. They care about anyone who's not them. They just know that'll get the ire of a bunch of stupid people. Go, oh, we love the ICC now. They want Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, too. You don't have to like Bibi Netanyahu. You're not, anyway. I've been openly critical of a lot of Israeli politicians, including Ehud Barak and others in the past. This is an America First show, but I believe it's in our interest to protect democratic institutions overseas that defend liberty and freedom and values where we can use that relationship for us. I want you to listen to Mamdani talk. I got 2 clips from this interview this weekend. Obviously didn't plan this because the interview just aired this weekend. And I put the ICC clip piece on the show last week. Here's Mamdani, again, talking about their love affair with the ICC. This is an op. This is a total psyop being run on you with the anti-Semitic entry point as the vehicle to come after you too, whether you're a Jew or not. They don't give a shit. Check this out.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is perhaps planning to visit New York for the UN General Assembly. You pledged during your campaign and after you won to order his arrest to comply with the International Criminal Court warrant. What will happen if he comes in September?
Look, I believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu belongs in The Hague. He's a war criminal who has been charged by the International Criminal Court. And what you will find is that is an opinion that is held by many purely because of what his actions have wrought over these last many years. I've also said that I will follow the laws that we have here in New York City because I believe that there's an importance in following the law as a leader who presides over our city, and that's something that I plan to do.
Meaning? I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means.
Meaning that whatever the law allows me to do in New York City, that's what we will do, but we won't be writing our own laws to that end.
This guy is a huge problem. Why? The unholy alliance of these two parties. What are they? I don't give pop quizzes. You're not obligated to take them, but I hope you remember what I just said. The Islamo-fanatics and the communists love each other. It's a totally different ideology. So why do they love each other? Because they both have the same end game. The same end game is this: kill, destroy, wreck the infidels and their institutions that give them power. That's it. They will attack each other and have in the past when power becomes an issue for them and they wipe us out. But they're not at that point yet. Mamdani is both for now. He's using communism to promote this Islamo-fanatic ideology, and he's using communism as a vehicle. And he understands he can use the theme of Israel and the evil Jews to get a bunch of impressionable people to think that this small country, the size of like New Jersey, is the cause of all your problems. He knows it. He's saying the same thing the people going after Trump are saying. Trump's not a Jew. Lock him up with the ICC. use globalist institutions to dismantle liberty and freedom everywhere and get the suckers to fall in line. Here's part 2 of this same interview where he mentions this insane talking point of arresting Netanyahu in New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, when I was a young agent with the Secret Service, right? You get stuck in DPD a lot, the Dignitary Protection Division details. They'll bring you in from a field office during the UN, where just about every head of state is in New York. Do you know how many tyrants and thugs we protect at the UN? Because it's the seat of, I'm not a big fan of the UN, obviously, but it's designed, at least in theory, which rarely works, to be some international hub of diplomacy. Therefore, we let a lot of shitheads into the country for the UN General Assembly because shitheads and like to talk to other shitheads. It's true. Notice they're only calling for the arrest of Mamdani, not when we had the Iranian scumbags here. They just want to arrest. It's because it's not about him. They know suckers will hear Israel Netanyahu. We love the ICC. Arrest him. You're next. So's Trump. This is an op. You're being played for a mother fool. They're telling you. It's the same freaking group of people who want everybody dead that's not them, the infidels. Do we play part 2 yet? We didn't. Here's part. Sorry. I mean, Justin's like, you're 20 minutes in. You're going to get to part 2. Maybe. This is part 2. Quick. Here's Mamdani again, bringing up the crazy idea of having the NYPD arrest Netanyahu. Does this guy not realize the second, if this applies now, and the rules of diplomacy are thrown out of the window, dip notes, diplomatic immunity are thrown out of the window, the second Mamdani travels to a country with a different ideology, he'll be arrested too. He doesn't care. He just wants you destroyed. Listen to him bring up this insane idea again. Check this out.
What does the law allow you to do?
That's an active conversation with our legal department in seeing what the prospects are we have here in our municipality. However, what we've seen at the national level is a desire sometimes to write your own laws, to go outside of the bounds of legality. That's not something we have an interest in.
I mean, normally when people come to a UN General Assembly, they're granted a sort of amnesty because it is the seat of the United Nations. Is that what you're thinking that you'll honor, or you're actively looking to see if you can actually arrest him?
I think we are looking at all of our legal obligations, and one of them is with regards to the United Nations. But the other part of this is we're not talking about a personal assessment of Benjamin Netanyahu. We're talking about the International Criminal Court and the fact that they have a warrant out for this prime minister's arrest. And I think it's important to talk about the weight that has as a charge, and also that as the mayor of New York City, I'll be following the laws of New York City.
Okay.
Folks, do you understand how insane this is? The crew's looking at me like, Dan, did you catch the key part of this? The New York Times, the most disgusting pseudo-journalistic outfit out there. A total disgrace to humankind. The New York Times interviewer on this podcast is trying to talk sense into Mamdani. What is going on here? What is going on here? Are we in bizarro Superman land where everything's upside down? What is going on here?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that. And yes, we are in bizarro world. I'm telling you, everything's upside down and backwards. But I will include this in my daily news wrap-up so you'll get to see more of this. Let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from Dan Bongino. This is the video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's slip down here, and if you think that's crazy, let me share you some information from AP for Liberty. Abolish the Senate. DSA candidates continue victory march. Okay, march on. Let's see what this is all about.
Peterson. Well, last week, a Minnesota daycare owner pleaded guilty to wire fraud, admitted that she milked a federal child care program for millions, and she used it to, make a smart decision with real estate, I guess. According to my next guest, she's not the story, though. She's just the tip of the iceberg. John Miltimore is a senior editor at the American Institute for Economic Research, and his new piece in the Washington Examiner. He's the Examiner. That's a better name, actually. The Minnesota daycare fraud scandal just got bigger. John, welcome back to the show. It's Mondays with Miltimore. Hi, Johnny boy.
Hey, good morning, AP. Good to be with you.
He's the examinator. John, we thought that the fraud story in Minnesota couldn't get any bigger, but now you say it has. What's the news?
Yeah, what I find interesting is that the woman who pleaded guilty here, prosecutors say she scammed about $5 million out of this federal program. She was, featured in that viral video by Nick Shirley, the YouTuber, who really did shine a light on this in a way that he brought attention to it that just was not there. He was doing those man on the street videos going from these daycares. He said, where are the people? Like, where are the kids? And what's interesting is how much backlash Shirley got, and he seemed to get it from all sides. But legacy media in particular, I think, really slammed him. My piece, it looks at the New York Times. They ran hundreds of stories on Shirley, and the one I dialed in on was written by Peter Baker. And he basically called Shirley a conspiracy theorist. He said his evidence is nothing, right? Like you go to daycares and no one's there. And he said this is the root of all these conspiracy theories on the right. It wasn't hard to see, though, that something was not right with these. And what we had is this woman was featured in that video. She's the first that was featured to plead guilty to federal charges. But the bigger story is all of this fraud was exposed and just uncovered years ago by investigators. And this guy, Jay Swanson, he was a former police officer. He headed up the criminal division for fraud at DHS here in Minnesota. He, found this in 2018, and he was, raising the alarm, and he was told to shut up. They told him, no. And he filed a report. They said, you got to change this. This is going to make us look bad. That's a quote that he gave to Congress. When he was told when he did this, he said, I can't amend my report. That would be unlawful. That'd be illegal. I have a responsibility. I'm charged with the state to do this. So they kneecapped him. They took away his authority. And this persisted for years afterwards. And only now, we're talking, 8 years later, has this fully come to light. And it is fraud on a massive scale. And it's not just daycares, right? Like it goes beyond that. But the daycare fraud was one. They had the goods, they had the receipts, and they did not want to pursue that.
Mm. Now, why does this one daycare owner's guilty plea matter far beyond Minneapolis, John?
Well, I think there's a few things. First, we were told for months that this was simply that nothing was there. And what's interesting is Peter Baker, the New York Times, he quoted the Star Tribune. They said, the Star Tribune went to these, daycares that Nick Shirley did, and they found no evidence of fraud. And so people are left to believe, like, well, who's right? This YouTuber? Like this guy, like, is he a serious journalist, or the Star Tribune and the New York Times? Well, Shirley was right. And what's interesting is Jay Swanson, the guy I mentioned, the investigators found the same things. Right, they were getting reports from like fire marshals are going to the daycares just to do safety checks. There's like no one here, right? Where are all the kids? And they had all that evidence then, but the bureaucrats said you can't do this. It'll make us look bad. I think there was political motivation clearly behind this. You had a constituency, and the people that were running these.
It would make them look bad. Don't you think it would make them look good if they found out about this and came out to the media and said, hey, we got to close this down because there's no kids here. They're charging the state for a daycare center with X amount of kids, but they have no kids. They're stealing your money. But no, they would make them look bad if they closed down a fraudulent daycare center. That's the Democrat thinking for you, though. That's the Democrat thinking. Let's go ahead and give away the tax money that these hardworking citizens, Americans, are paying in taxes. Let's give that away to fraudsters, to crooks, to thieves, and let them continue. Well, in fact, let's just go ahead and raise the freaking taxes because they're not getting enough money. They're not stealing enough money, okay? Because, they've only got Toyotas and Nissans and shit. They need Mercedes. They need Lincolns. They need Cadillacs. They need Porsches. Okay? They're just getting, the the higher end cars. They're not getting the top of the line cars. So yeah, we need to raise taxes so we can give them more money to steal from the American people that are working their asses off and paying taxes.
Scams. This comes from Jay Swanson as well. He said there's other, states that you could get away with this. He said, but nowhere was it, easier than Minnesota. And that was the word on the street. They were talking like, hey, if you want to run this scam, it's a piece of cake here in Minnesota. And it was a piece of cake, not because you could pull it off, but apparently even when you're caught, they did not want to pursue. And in fact, that criminal division, like they were told, we're going to have no criminal charges. They were, and this came out just recently. There's a woman running for governor, and she talked about this in a story that was published a few months ago. But they said even when you have evidence of fraud, we're not going to file any criminal charges.
John, just your personal take on this. Why? Why do you think that they would allow this to continue?
No, it's wild because I think there's a few answers, but one is I think they realized they could get away with it, right? You had people that had just come into power, and they said, well, we this is happening, but we don't have to. We can look away from this, and what's going to stop us, right? Like who's going to come after us? We have plausible deniability, and I'll say the other thing: it's not their money, right? When you're playing with other people's money, who cares if they're ripping you off for hundreds of millions, billions of dollars? And it is billions. We have that quote, $9 billion in fraud in the state by Joe Thomas, was a U.S. attorney who really did expose this. If you had Donald Trump, and I'm not laughing at Trump when he says this. He says it's actually their figures much higher, more like 19 billion. And again, whose money is that? That's taxpayer money. And who really cares if that money might have been serving a very important political purpose. There were people benefiting from that. I think we know there's clearly embezzling.
Or if there wasn't so much fraud and giving money to these NGOs that funnel it back to the Democrat Party, and I'm sure that there's some funneled back to the Republican Party too. They're not a bunch of angels sitting there at the RNC and in the Senate, for sure. They're not quite as asshole-ish in the House, but I'm sure some of this money, if they weren't sending it out for fraud and shit like that, they might be able to balance the budget or maybe even pay a little bit on the $39 trillion debt the United States has and paying taxes on that, which is about $1.2 trillion a year just in frickin' interest. Okay, I said taxes, but I meant paying interest on it. Unfreaking believable. Now, Donald Trump can't get this fixed in 2 years. I don't know who the hell's going to get it fixed. There was some scuttlebutt out there about him running again for president, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, he is getting up there in age. He's sharp as a tack. Listen to him talk and then go back and listen to some of Biden's speeches. Give me a break. But you'll have to look hard because there were very few that he actually gave. But when he did give one, he couldn't complete a sentence, let alone a thought. But the thing is, this has been going on, folks, for about 80 years now, since the 40s, since Truman was president. He's the one that created the CIA and all the loopholes for them to grift America and other countries. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this here. There's a lot to be said here. This will be in my daily news wrap up. There's about an hour left in this video, and he's got more information after this here with John Milton or Miltmore. But let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link, and it's most of the time I don't jump in and interrupt this, but this is so frustrating, so infuriating, and I've seen some of the chats that you guys have dropped. It's amazing that they just let it go on, and every one of them knows the debt, if nothing else, the national debt. and how much interest we're paying on it. And they just don't care. It seems like Donald Trump and a few around him are the only ones that even give a crap. But he spends a lot of money himself. But it's freaking amazing. Unbelievable. But at any rate, this is the video I shared with you. Again, this will be in my daily news wrap-up. I've followed the channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, jump back there, and let's see what Robert Gouveia has to say about shadow government FBI agent busted for declassified docs. Now, I like Robert because he's an attorney, okay, and he goes through these documents and spells out what the heck's in there in a way that we can all understand it. Now, they were busted. Are they going to get convicted? This FBI agent, he was busted, she was busted. But are they going to actually serve any time? Are they just going to go through the process and then some liberal judge lets him off, even if the jury finds him guilty? But let's see what this is all about.
Nikki Flores, the deep stater who said that she was now acting as a shadow government, has been exposed. President Trump released internal documents that are now declassified, showing her text messages with other people where she admitted it outright. And we're learning more about this woman and exactly how deep the rabbit hole goes. But if you missed the actual exchange, in this segment, we were talking about these messages back and forth between a person called Nikki L. Flores, the woman that you just saw right here. She was also asked a bunch of questions by Matt Gaetz, which we'll review. But there were exchanges going on, and this all centered around a report. The report was very damning for the current deep state. They did not want Trump to get their hands on any of this material. And at the bottom of this one declassified document, you can see we've got a bunch of details here. But this was about a recall of an intelligence product that went out and was going to make its way up into the president's hands and to other people who can ultimately make a decision about this. And they stole it back. They recalled it, and they prevented any future products that are in this vein from actually going up through the proper chains. They bypassed everything to make it go through FBI HQ so that they could have a veto power. And so we've got 3 statutes that we've got queued up here that we think are relevant criminal charges for this behavior. Of course, we'll see what you say about it. But here was just the subject. There was a substantive recall of this report. Chinese government production and export of fraudulent U.S. driver's licenses to Chinese sympathizers in the United States in order to create tens of thousands of fraudulent mail-in votes for presidential candidate Joe Biden. This was a product that came out from a Chinese source who had a sub-source, and there were people inside the FBI who thought this was very important, and we need to bring this to attention and address it. So once this went out, then they went through a meltdown, and they wanted to recall this one product. And we'll take a look at more of the mechanics here. But the short of it is that this woman was texting about this. Someone sends her a message. Good morning, sunshine. Do you have any? Says, yeah, let me shoot you an email. Thanks. Unrelated, do you have a serial number for that report that you mentioned to me last week? The damage saying she responds, it's recalled. Okay, I pulled it back out. We put the binder back out because it was going to be damaged. She gives him the number. She's also asking if there was a revision on the wrong one. Yeah, there should have been seen in my team. Not yet. Okay, I looked in our system, but I didn't see it. But the system I use to look at your reports is not friendly, so it might be there somewhere. Yeah, it doesn't look like they pushed the revision out yet. She says, for F's sake here, potty mouth. Okay, the director has the original in his book this morning. She says, great. Hashtag fun never ends. Seriously, she says, we're pushing out a note today to all FOs, field offices, that all election-related reports must come through us, FIDF and the HQ. So if there's anything else that says the Chinese helped Joe Biden win and brought in fraudulent IDs, which we validated well before we got these documents. There are literal reports on Border Patrol's website. Right now, you can go look them up. Thousands, tens of thousands of fake IDs coming in at the port of entry in Detroit, Chicago, O'Hare airports, and more. They caught them. They didn't really know what these were for. The reports say that the IDs actually worked since the Chinese stole 220 million personal records, so they could create actual names or go and just validate who these people are and make a duplicate ID. Maybe go take those IDs, go register in another state, vote in that other state. The person who is the subject has their identity stolen, would have no idea, identify low propensity voters and more. Tens of thousands of ballots came in. They just chalked it up. They didn't know. At Border Patrol, like, I don't know, maybe these are college kids who just want to go drink at bars somewhere. So then he says, that's good. Okay, we don't want anything bypassing Christopher Wray. We don't want anything deviating past what we want to veto before it gets to the president. This is the damning text. He says, that's good. Like, perfect. Yeah, because this is crazy. She says, I'm basically running a shadow government across the FBI at this point. Wow. I'm running a shadow government across the FBI. And there are various statutes talking about concealing material facts. And if you're doing that, that's a crime. You've got an obligation as a government employee. You've sworn an oath, I would presume, to not do this. And she's violating multiple statutes. We'll come back to those and apply. But here is what this dude says in response. Don't know who this is, but he's a material witness to these crimes, saying, you do what you have to do. Smiley face, okay? You do what you have to do. Run your shadow government and good luck. Hang in there. I told someone you just need to get through December. There are a couple of weeks in November and December where it is a ghost town. She says, no joke, I want to take like a 2-week vacay in January. My FBI coup is a lot of pressure on me. I'd like to go have some mojitos down in China. My goal is to take a month off. This guy, I am scheduled to finish here June 21. Then I plan to take July off. That's my goal. She says, don't leave. And I wonder what's going on here, because who says that to a coworker? Good morning, sunshine. Like, I know you could say that, like, good morning, sunshine, like in general. But if you say that to a person, is that kind of like a lovey-dovey phrase, like, hello, sunshine, good morning, bright eyes, something like that? I wonder if these two are indicting each other. So, no joke, I want to take a week off. Don't leave, frowny. Since Alan can't sit in on the brief, can you let me know how the convo goes about my reports that I'm now retracting and recalling? Yes, we'll let you know. Grazie. If your bosses have a 9:30, suspect the meeting will be short. We are only up to blank. It's almost 8:30. Good Lord. Yeah, I had a few things, but I'll just pass. This always happens when I actually have a few things that might be useful to the group. And so the whole report was recalled. Now you can see one person, one agent from FIDF identified an open source report about Border Patrol seizing fraudulent driver's licenses. We've talked about it many times. Tens of thousands of IDs came in. They emailed the Albany report to the China unit. Then the China unit informed this person about the seizures, discussed this with someone else, recommending for others and future leads to investigate it. Then they issued a second lead about this story, about the IDs coming in that are actually being exploited by the Chinese. And then they obtained information via others, which identified the China-based sender names and addresses for the shipment packages, and noted that Border Patrol does not maintain a list of names for fraudulent driver's licenses, as they say the majority of those are just for underage kids who want to drink. Then they sent another email containing information, and more emails went out. And then somebody authors a report covering the lead, and they identify who it is. And then of course, that was just the initiation of how it was created. And then they ultimately withdrew it. Okay, this is the Albany report is what this document is called. Goes through a bunch of subsources. Finally, someone sends it out, and then they recall the emails. People are responding to concerns. Hey, and then finally they just block it. Nope, this report is not authoritative. You need to go back and do some additional work. Meanwhile, the lady who's helping to facilitate a lot of this is saying, I'm running literally a shadow government. This guy, as we saw, he said, the fact that you want to recall this, like Christopher Wray went out and testified that the Chinese are not interfering. This would actually directly contradict Christopher Wray. And so Christopher Wray and the FBI were essentially just the same as Bill Barr was. Okay, they didn't look, or they did look and they knew what was happening and they didn't follow up on it, or worse, they actively concealed material facts from the literal president of the United States. We know they hate him, but it's not their right to retract information from him. So all of this is documented here in the emails and a back and forth. Of course, we covered that at length. Here's how it was recalled. You see, ultimately, boom, more recalls, more emails. And then someone else says, Flores right here. One person states to Flores via email that should never have gone out and then recommends a recall. Then Flores is asked via email that he asked Albany to recall. Then Flores replies that she concurs and the shadow government jumps in. And then, of course, it is recalled. Says here, they'll require once again, boom. She says everything's going to come through our offices so that we can veto everybody. Okay, it's all there on exactly how it went down. Then, boom, it is recalled. The IIR is recalled by the CRO. And so they knew exactly what was going on even before the election occurred and didn't tell anybody about it. So that woman's name is Nikki Flores. And we've got more information about her. And a lot of this came over from our friends at Marco Polo and Oversight, who've already been all over this lady. Here's a background on her. So Nikki Lee Flores, courtesy of Marco Polo, 501c3, on X and at .org and Substack. They say Flores, she has been involved as a Democrat hatchet person for a long time. Flores, along with her colleague Benavides, provided false information to senators about the Bidens. Weird. And their foreign business dealings, specifically Flores, who met multiple times with Joe Biden's then chief counsel in the West Wing called Dana Remus. So they get Joe Biden installed, and then she goes out there and is working with him. They were embroiled in Joe's classified documents. She briefed a U.S. Senate committee about how legitimate inquiries into the Bidens, if you look into the Bidens, that's Russian disinformation. Just like the other intelligence idiots, the 51 of those people who signed on that letter said, this is all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation operations. And Miranda Devine was on this back in 2025 in April. She said Nikki Flores was one of the agents who gave Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley a bogus defensive briefing in August 2020, undermining their Hunter Biden investigation. Okay, so in 2020, August, she's covering up for Chinese influence and then blaming the Russians as she's covering up for Joe Biden. Said it was all a Russian disinformation operation. And then somebody leaked about that. So she is protecting Joe while disarming Trump as to the truth of what's happening in the elections. It's bad. So we know more about her, and what we've seen here, the president actually called this out. And so if you missed the full speech last night, let's listen to what he had to say about this, and then we'll learn even more about her and take a look at the criminal charges.
Okay, I'm going to pause this here and move on. And I will include this in my daily news wrap-up. So if you want to hear more of this, you want to hear what Donald Trump has to say, President Trump, please tune into that. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and click over here on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Robert Gouveia. This is the video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Alrighty then, let's jump back here. And isn't it amazing the information that you're not getting on the mainstream media? Unbelievable. And you folks tune into this, and you tune into Dan Bongino and you tune into Wendy Bell to hear the truth. You would think that there would be a lot of people that would tune into the mainstream media if they would freaking tell the truth. Unbelievable. But no, they're losing viewership. They continue to lose viewership Because they're telling lies. I don't get it. I mean, their income depends on the number of people that watch their show for advertisement. And if they don't get so many people watching the show, they don't get so many bucks for advertisement. You know, like Jimmy Kimmel, they lose like $20 million a year on his show because he has shit and the advertisers aren't paying because his viewership isn't all that much. I don't get it. All right, let's see what Wendy Bell has to say. Pete's Wingman live. That's in the second hour, so we'll get into this and see what she has to say. She gave me a nice shout out today when I rated her channel. But let's
I will say,
we're going to start past that. If you want to hear that, the link's in the description box. You can go back and hear her give me a shout out.
Out of the gates, I watched probably 47 seconds of the World Cup final yesterday. And what a shame that it wasn't more of an exciting regulation game. And I was looking at Spain and Argentina, and I was looking at the parallels between our two political parties as these people are on the field, right? Beautiful day for World Cup Championship soccer, right? And you've got Argentina with star players acting like the Democrats, and you've got Spain, right? Acting as though they are the Republicans. And you're like, how are you even making this analogy? Well, think about Spain. They had all these shots on goal. They were constantly planning. They were plotting, various moves. They were kicking it to open space. They had a couple breakaways. They had strategy. They were thinking about this. They were doing that. And then there was Argentina. And they're like trying their best not to lose, not to win, but not to lose, to stay the people in power, to stay the king of the hill, to just do what needs to be done. Nothing ritzy, nothing fancy, nothing like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. And they had 0 shots on goal. And you're like, really? This is the best of the best? This is where we are? You guys are playing keep away? You're playing boring defense, boring offense? And Spain's like, bzz, 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 trying to get the ball, trying to do this. Ultimately, as you well know, Spain ultimately won, which was great. I was excited for that. They deserve to win. Can you imagine if some fluky thing would have happened and Argentina, after putting on a very boring display, would have walked away with the big trophy and all? I'm thinking that looking at them for the 47 seconds I'm paying attention to the game. And I'm like, man, this is so indicative of where we are. You've got a Democrat machine, a uniparty machine, unwilling to make new plays, unwilling to deviate from what has worked for so long. They slow walk, they stonewall, they obfuscate, they create other stories to throw you off your game. But they don't do anything all that exciting, right? And then the Republicans come in and they're like, hey, we could do things better, right? Why don't we try to, I don't know, zhuzh things up? Let's try different things. Let's try tax cuts. Let's try no tax on tips. Let's redo this Obamacare nightmare. Let's redo all of this stuff. And this is the game I'm watching, 47 seconds. I make a political analogy and like disgusted walk away, right? Congratulations to all of the teams that were involved. It was a wonderful event. But you know where my mind is on this. The Republican Party right now, I believe, with Donald Trump, is trying desperately to do what is right by you. I believe this. I believe they are here, the people he has selected. There's a fit group of cabinet members who have you in mind, you at heart, you in their daily agenda. And then you've got a deep state uniparty apparatus that wants to do everything to play keep away, everything to keep the ball away from our touch. I think you could probably see where I'm going with that. This is something that came across my newsfeed this morning, my social media feed. And it is an AI-generated Ronald Reagan. Though it's him. It's just things that he had said during the course of his presidency, those 8 years, that were mushed into about a minute-long commentary. And I hit Grok and I'm like, is this true? Is this stuff that Ronald Reagan actually said? And Grok came back and said, absolutely, it's AI generated, but these are all factual things that Ronald Reagan said. I want you to listen to this because it's so applicable to today.
You ever notice how every time a Republican takes office, the Democrats start acting like it's the end of the world? I mean, the minute we cut taxes or trim the budget, they start screaming that the sky is falling. Now, don't get me wrong, I admire their consistency. If the stock market surges, they say it's just helping the rich. And if it crashes, they say, yep, that's what happens under Republican leadership. And don't even get me started on foreign policy. A Republican president could be shaking hands with world leaders and signing peace deals, and they'd say, it must be appeasement. But the minute there's tension overseas, they rush to the nearest camera like it's Black Friday saying, see, we told you the world would catch fire if he was in charge. Now, I've always said, it's fine to disagree on policy. That's democracy. But if your best shot at winning is hoping the American people lose, well, maybe you're in the wrong country.
How true is that? You know, and this is what I was literally feeling watching the minute of the game I was watching. Like when our team, the Republican Party, is not in power, right? I still want America to do well. I still want our prosperity to be through the roof. Even and by the way, and if it's a Democrat who's responsible for it, what a refreshing thing that would be. When was the last time a Democrat came in with an idea that actually was good for you, that was actually good for America, that did something beneficial for your family, that took something off of your plate, that made you proud to stand up with your hand over your heart and, by golly, belt out the national anthem like nobody's flipping business? See, that's the spirit that the World Cup being in the North Americas did. That's the feeling, the vibe we got at these games, right? It was love of the game, love of the sport. Yes. Support for our team, support for our countries. Yes. But an overarching competitive spirit and a tradition with football that is special. Democrats, they want you to lose. They want you to fail. They want you to suffer. They want you to go broke. They want you to be miserable. They want you to hate God. They want you to get a divorce. They want you to have a terrible relationship with your family. Because then, if all of those things took place, you'd maybe be as miserable as they are. Literally, that's how I feel. And literally after the game yesterday, a gentleman's game, which is fiercely childish in many ways with the flopping and the theatrics on the field. And if you're not a soccer fan, you're probably off put to that. After the game, though, there is always that sportsmanship. There's always that aura of decorum, of some things are bigger than bickering. And then what ended up happening? Some stupid red card and fighting after the fact, completely unbecoming champions competing for the trophy. I mean, like, it's completely synonymous with everything we're experiencing. But I'm going to say this. My team, the coach is Trump. And my team wants you to win, even if you're not on our side. My team wants you to have the best life possible. My team wants your children to grow up and to have unreasonable wealth and opportunity. My team wants you to make the best decisions for you and your family. My team wants peace and prosperity. And that feeling in the stands you get when everybody sits down and realizes, my Lord, what a blessing and a gift that we've been given. Let's start freaking acting like it. To the Democrats out there who will do everything to play keep away, who will play crappy offense and the same old predictable defense, don't you think you deserve a better strategy? How about maybe for once, you could be on the side of America winning? When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, Anonymous is kind of bothered by the TV news networks that decided not to air the president's address last week. And he decided to do a little bit of a deep dive. And it's fascinating. Why did communist and authoritarian governments withhold information from us? Well, because people can't unite around information they never receive. Bingo. Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's get this up here. Pastor commercial break.
You're going has to say, you need for a president. Some of the brazen.
Okay, come on.
Ho, 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 it's magic. You know.
Well, welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio program, my friends. There's a lot of blowback. In fact, a lot more than I expected. And it's lingering through days and days of news cycles. Got the FCC now taking a real stab at possibly revoking some of the broadcasting licenses for these TV operations, right? If you're going to refuse to cover a presidential address because you just hate that president so much that you can't stand hearing what he has to say, you need help. You need an intervention. You need a psychiatrist is what you need, and probably some robust meds. It's pathological. Anonymous from Deepfake Quotes on X puts together this. I think it's a fantastic explainer with some knowledge of communism, his own personal knowledge of authoritarianism and communism. And he says, look, by not broadcasting to how many tens of millions of Americans, what the president of the United States said, you're actively choosing winners and losers. Listen.
Many news organizations chose not to carry the president's recent address live. I don't care why they did it. I care what they did. They prevented millions of Americans from hearing the President of the United States address the nation in real time. That's the outcome. They made believe they were justified. I do not. They can call it editorial judgment. They can call it responsible journalism. They can call it protecting the public. The outcome doesn't change. An intermediary decided that the public would not receive the original source directly. I have seen that philosophy before. Years ago, I experienced life inside a communist system. I was arrested there after meeting with a Soviet refusnik and visiting an underground Jewish synagogue. It taught me something I have never forgotten. Perhaps understanding why communists and authoritarian governments curate and withhold information can help us examine a broader principle, one that may also help explain why some organizations decide citizens should not hear directly from their own president. I'm not interested in assigning motives. I'm interested in analyzing outcomes. Why do authoritarian governments control information? Because information is power. First, to control the narrative. If citizens hear only what authorities permit, those authorities shape how events are understood. Second, to protect legitimacy. When criticism is limited, those in power face less accountability. Third, to prevent organized opposition. Information allows people to compare experiences, identify problems, and act together. Fourth, to maintain social control. People who receive only curated information are generally easier to influence than people who have direct access to competing viewpoints. And finally, to preserve the system itself. When information flows freely, citizens are better equipped to question institutions, evaluate competing claims, and reach their own conclusions. This is not unique to communist governments. Throughout history, authoritarian systems and corrupt systems of many kinds have relied on controlling the flow of information. Different countries, different institutions. The underlying principle remains remarkably familiar. The public should not need an intermediary to decide whether it may hear from the President of the United States. In a free society, let people hear it, then analyze it, question it, challenge it, criticize it, but let the people hear it first. My friends, we are all anonymous.
Don't you believe that you have the right to decide what you believe about everything? That's one of the most, I think, often taken for granted parts of being an American. That you don't have somebody breathing down your neck, dictating how you must be. We've walked a very slippery slope to that end. And COVID was a very big wake-up call for those of us who were not used to emergency wand-waving edicts, or particularly tyrannical, small-minded Democrats who got delusions of power and control and loved it while you were being told to stay home and stay calm. This is a very disturbing time, but it is a necessary time. And people are speaking out, some of them unlikely people, some of them with messages I'd love to tweak. I'm thinking Bill Maher, because he's coming up later in the show. ABC News couldn't be bothered to share with you the president's address about the largest identity theft operation in American history at the hands of China. The same China that, thanks to Dr. Fauci, foisted upon the world a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic. That same China. And now we know in these declassified documents the president and the White House put on their website over the weekend that there are agents in the American media who have been paid, who have been compensated, who have been brought to the dark side for China to spread one hell of a negative message about President Trump. I think I know one of the main offenders, and you'll hear from him in his own words at the end of today's program. Please do not miss it. When we come back on the Wendy Bell Radio program.
All right. Well, don't miss it. Tune in to my daily news wrap up and you won't miss that. But in the meantime, go ahead and click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. This is the video I shared with you. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. And B Hops 1 kind of jumped in there and gave me a few comments. But as you see from the comments that I've dropped here earlier, they're no longer visible. But see, that's the thing about these chats is they only last about an hour. Okay, and then they go away, and when the live stream is over, then the chats kind of disappear too. So thank you very much, Viper Senior. Great content. I appreciate that. Let me copy the live chats into a comment so they will be a permanent part of this video. Anyway, B Hops gave me what was it? Let me jump over here and share this with you. Oops, there we go. Yeah, he gave me live chat number 60. Okay, I was at 59 when the video started, and then B Hops jumped in there and did his trolling and gave me my 60th live stream unique chat. So there you have it. Good job. Okay, and let me remind you folks, let me go ahead and close this out. Let me remind you folks that these videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer's channel. I've got the link to the videos here in the description box, as well as the links to the producer's channel if you want to go visit them and see more information that they have to offer. And these videos that I've shared with you are videos that I've posted on Murtech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. The kind of information that you're not going to get from the mainstream media. This is your one-stop shop for that. So I'd like to share all of it with you, but unfortunately I just don't have the time to do so. And that's why I put together Murtech's Daily News Wrap-Up, where it says I have 18 videos in here, about 9 or 10 hours worth of great information. We're going to start off with Wendy Bell, where we left off. Same thing with Dan Bongino, AP for Liberty, Robert Gouveia, We the People News, and we know. Bongino Report, Barry Cunningham, a ton of great information here, folks. But as of right now, go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes. I hope B Hops comes back so, he can troll us some more. But thank you so much for being here with me tonight. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.